Welcome to the Scoop World Order Day After Christmas edition. Hope you guys had a great holiday. Also, happy Hanukkah to everyone that celebrates that as well. Again, I appreciate all you guys that kicked it with us last night. We were back in the swing, rolling into the Rose Bowl. What an incredible run we're about to be on with this game. We've got inside information on what's going on with the game plan. What are we going to be attacking? We attacked a lot last time, but a lot of it worked, and I think that we're going to see a different result this time. So I'm very excited to break this down with you guys in Nevadabuck. So if you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Again, appreciate you guys kicking it with us each and every night. Christmas was a blast. We had a bunch of you guys jump on here. Again, Nevada and I, we love Christmas, but when it gets to be about 7 o'clock, most people, the families are departing, and kids are playing with their toys and whatever, and it's time to do a little bit of work, do a podcast, and we had a nice crowd last night, so we appreciate you guys kicking with us. If you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Again, we appreciate you guys that have been helping grow our Apple Podcasts and our Spotify. Again, those are both completely free. It is the best way to thank us. Again, you don't have to thank us, but a lot of you guys are always like, what can we do? How can we help? And I say, if you just follow us on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, it's the best thing in the world you can do for us to help grow it, because we've neglected it for years. Starting to grow now, so it's been really nice of you guys to do that, and we appreciate it. Leave us a 5-star review if you guys enjoy the show, and we're going to get right into it with Nevada. We had a wonderful little anecdote from the helping technician, who has been a really rock solid insider for us for a couple years now, and he had some insight on the Tennessee game plan and some insight also on what is going on with this Oregon game plan. Give us kind of a little summary of what a helping technician, who is a old grumpy bastard, but he's a great guy. But he loves he loves dialing it up. I mean, when he gets some info, it's good, and it's usually nails. So he's a guy that you always pay attention to when you're talking to him. But he's a character. So what is surmise a little bit about the helping technician and what he wrote about today?
Well, we obviously, they dwelled into a little bit about, just, what a mess, obviously, that the game that will not be mentioned again was, we all know that. We don't have to talk about that, but they talked about kind of the collaboration with Ryan and Chip on the Tennessee game plan, and the interesting contributions from Brian Hartline, of all people. So I thought that was really, it was really interesting, because the game plan, it felt so different for us. That watch Ohio State football as closely as we do. We watch every snap multiple times. We talk to people close to the program, inside the program, parents, players, coaches. So we get a pretty good idea in terms of what's going on. And that was such an outlier, and it was so great to see the Tennessee game plan, because that was really that's kind of what we expected the OSU offense to look like for the majority of the year. Was starting to look that way. Then we had some setbacks on the offensive line, but they're in their bag now. They are clearly on the attack. They're clearly playing it an aggressive style. An oversimplification is kind of RPO run, RPO pass, and Will Howard looking on the outside to see if you're ever going to single JJ, because if you single JJ is probably going to take you over the top. But that's kind of what they're doing right now. And as an old defensive coordinator myself, and you as the All-American, we've talked about this many times, but if you properly run RPO action, I'm not sure how you defend it. I'm really not sure how you defend it. When you have superior playmakers, when you have guys that are absolute game breakers on the outside, NFL quality running backs, a veteran of 50 starts at quarterback, I am not sure how you stop. I think the offenses pretty much have to stop themselves, with negative plays, with turnovers, with penalties or something like that. Because Will was just dicing them up, and I think that the only thing that could, I should say, the only other thing that could hold you back is just going away from it. And Ryan Day clearly is a believer. I think he's definitely seen the light. They're not out to prove anything. They're not out to dispel any narratives about toughness or winning rushing battles or anything. They're just about winning games. And I think Ryan has finally made the brain connection that is the more aggressive I am on offense, the better my chances to win. And I think he passed a barrier, a threshold with that in the Tennessee game. And I think it manifests itself in a lot of different ways. But if I did just put it down to one play, it was that 4th and 4. 4th and 4, Ryan Day is punting 100% of the time, 100% of the time, and he didn't even blink. He sent them right out there, and they just went right after it, and they converted. So I like I said, I really, I think that Ryan Day, we forget sometimes what a young coach he is, what an inexperienced coach he is relative to other coaches in big time college football. He's 45 years old. He'd never been a head coach before. He's in year, I'm not sure it's 5 or 6 or whatever year it is. But right now with Ryan, I think it's 5. But that's a baby. That is a baby in coaching terms. And he's working through some of the things. He's working through clock management issues, through administrative issues, through the play calling issues, through handing off play calling issues, to becoming a CEO. But that was his best work. Last Saturday, that was his absolute best work. And I think they're gonna. I'm telling you right now, from watching Oregon I've watched Oregon many times, I don't think they're that good. And I'm not saying off. I'm saying that on the defense side. I think offensively they're absolutely 100% legit. I don't think they're that good defensively. I really don't think they're that good. And, people want to make this big deal out of, well, Ohio State lost Jimmy Simmons from last game. Well, we lost him halfway through the game anyway, which I would submit to you is a much bigger fire drill than having to replace them altogether at the end of the year, where you have a chance to play guys, run guys, do stuff like that. Replacing a player mid-game is terrible. And the second thing that they're all excited about is Birch, their defensive tackle, being back. Like, oh, we didn't have Birch the first time around. Well, you had Birch when Penn State violated you on your last time out in the Big Ten championship game. Gave up 8.7 yards per carry, 529 yards of offense. So I really don't think that Penn State's going to be able to stop us. And you know what? I don't think Ohio State believes, or excuse me, that Oregon. I don't believe that Ohio State believes that Oregon can stop them either. And so it's you got an Ohio State team playing at an extremely high level right now. Now you look at all the analysts and all the accolades and all the power rankings of the quarterbacks, and guess who's right up at the top? It's Will Howard now. Now everybody's on the Will Howard train, because he was absolutely magnificent against against a really good Tennessee defense. The Tennessee defense is way better than Oregon's, I can tell you that. And we could have hung 60 on them. So yeah, I'm excited. Helping technicians excited, and I can't wait for the game to for the game to kick off.
Yeah, I think it's there's got to be a lot of confidence with Ohio State when you watch the Penn State game, you watch your game, watch Boise, you watch the playoff teams. Again, it's real easy to break these guys down. Just watch the Boise State game, watch our game, watch Penn State. There's just a lot of vulnerability on the defense, in my opinion. Like again, this isn't like this is some terrifying unit, which again I think is a confidence builder. This is it's still basically a Pac-12 school. I mean, they've never been known for being physical. And again, when we played them in 14, and I know it's all different players, all different coaches, all different everything, but they had 2 first-round picks, and they were great players. DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead, guys that have made $100 million each in the NFL, playing defensive tackle for the Colts, and Armstead was drafted by the Niners. I think he's with the Jaguars now. But I remember going into that 14 game, watched them on tape versus Florida State. You got to remember they beat Florida State like 62-28 or some crazy score, and Florida State was the defending national champions. It was a 2-3 game, and we obviously beat Alabama in the 1-4 game. But I mean, their D linemen were not real interested in playing the run. They were not very physical. And I think that there's going to be a lot of meat on the bone for our guys. And we scheme this thing up and we run Will Howard correctly. And again, these games when you play equal talent, they come down to not making mistakes, protect the ball. Again, it's the most boring. And like when people say, Kirk, what's it going to take to win the game? I was like, well, if we just don't turn it over, we would have won last time, but we turned it over a couple times. And that's nobody's fault. I mean, Quinshon had a broken wrist or a broken hand or whatever he had and fumbled the ball, and that kills you, and then we don't recover the surprise onside kick or whatever it was and bounces off our best player, Caleb Downs. It's you just can't do that against a good team. And again, I don't think we're going to do that because those are two kind of freaky things, and we've been really good about protecting the football. I think Will Howard's going to have, I mean, his level of intensity is going to be legendary leading up to this game because again, he'd been hoping for a rematch. He got his wish granted. And I think that our team is accelerating and peaking, and I mean, every game that you got is it's a 1-game season. I mean, they're gonna both take the field, and one of them is gonna end in a very sad manner. The other one's gonna get to advance and play Texas in all likelihood in the Cotton Bowl. So I mean, it's this tournament's unbelievable. But these guys, and again, you don't have to. This is, it's kind of like eating an elephant. You have to eat it one bite at a time. Like this playoff is like eating an elephant. Because I mean, it's like you say, you got to go beat, if this was just a regular schedule and okay, here's the schedule for Ohio State this year. They have to play Oregon twice. They have to play, Texas. They have to play Tennessee, and they have to potentially play Georgia. You'd fire the athletic director, but this is the new normal. And I think that these guys have a chance to become the greatest Ohio State team that's ever played. Better than 02, better than 14, better than any of them that have ever played because of this gauntlet that they have to run. And again, I think they're going to be favored in all these games. I think they'll be favored versus Oregon, Texas, and Georgia. And I would say all I care about right now is Oregon. But I think that, we learned from our mistakes. I think that we'll have a great plan. I think that our defense, to me, that was the turning point in the season for the defense was getting embarrassed at Oregon. I think that these guys, these kids got a lot of pride. I mean, these guys are 5-star kids. They have ambitions of being first-round picks in the NFL draft. They all wanted to be All-Americans. They all wanted to win major awards. And for the most part, none of them cashed in on any of that. So the one big ticket they got left is to win the national title, which they're basically favored to do at this point. I mean, it's Texas, then us, then Oregon, but I mean, the only reason that Texas is favored ahead of us at Oregon is because they don't have to play each other guaranteed yet. So, but I think that with the game plan, I mean, Penn State's going to have a great blueprint for what to get after their interior guys, get on the edge. Again, feed JJ, which was the focal point of our offense against Tennessee. And when you do that, then good things happen. Like the game's not real hard. Run JJ on drive routes like we did. Don't just try to take him over the top. Just get the ball in his hands and make them have to tackle JJ because he's like the Derrick Henry of wide receivers. Like nobody in the secondary, none of these 180-pound corners want to go and tackle JJ on any given day. And every time that they try to hit him, it's going to hurt. So again, keep feeding that boy. But then Trey's been fantastic, and Trey was great in the first game, and Quinshon was dinged up, but he's healthy now. So I think he's got some meat on the bone as well. Nevada, where do you think we will see the biggest areas of improvement from the first game versus Oregon to the Rose Bowl versus Oregon?
Well, and I mean, the obvious answer I think is, Denzel Burke's not going to get burnt for 258 yards or, whatever that is. They'll play a style of defense that won't allow that to happen. And obviously Denzel, talk about a guy that's super motivated to kind of get back on the horse and get out there against get Oregon and kind of redeem himself. That's one. But I think secondly, we just talk about, I'm a big believer in kind of small sample size variance. And I feel like so much went wrong for us on major game turning plays against Oregon that I just don't believe we're going to, I don't believe statistically I don't believe you can, lose an onside kick, like that. I mean, that play was absolutely gigantic in a game where you're trading scores and, you're hitting up man and the ball goes back and, Quinshon has one of the. I mean, I'm not sure how many times Quinshon's fumbled this year, but it's not much. Fumbles inside the 20 when you're up, and I just think that some of those plays are going to break our way this time. And for Oregon, I mean, Oregon had the benefit of playing in front of a jacked up crowd in the biggest game in the history of Autzen Stadium at night. Extremely difficult, a situation for Ohio State offense to come in and operate. Um, and they don't have that. They don't have that this time around. And I just think the general approach of teams that have lost the first time around to teams that have beat them the first time around, I think it's a huge edge to the team come there. So I just think that Ohio State, coming off the big win against Tennessee, the an Oregon team that played kind of a lackluster game against Penn State, at least defensively. Offensively, they've been nails all year round. But I just think that we've got stuff for them. I think we've got another gear. I didn't feel before the first game that they were that good. And I still feel that way. I don't think they're that good. I think that they've got a very clever quarterback in Dylan Gabriel, and I think they call it an aggressive game format. And they've got some big speed guys on the outside. But I think overall, especially on the defensive side, I think they're absolutely vulnerable. And I think that's going to catch up to them. I think that they've lived a little bit of a charm life this year. And I think the clock runs out on when we play them in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, I think that when you look at some of the plays we made, and again, this is what Will Howard needs to do in this game, is what he did in the last game. Again, this is have to reinvent the wheel, but this was, this is Will Howard at his best, and this is why Will Howard is a better quarterback than Kyle McCord, in my opinion. Is that when it all breaks down and everything goes sideways, he can get out here. And again, this is and this is Zen. This is our backup left tackle, and they've got Mateo, and they're good ends out there, but. His ability to create, and again, they're matched up, and again, this pass rush is completely engulfed by our line, and Will gets out here to create a little bit, and gets to JJ, and again, that's all you really got to do. I mean, again, I think that moving the pocket is critical. Feed Trey. I mean, really, you feed JJ and you feed Trey. Those are the two guys that got to eat a lot in this game, and I think we're going to. And again, I think our defense had their worst performance, mostly because Denzel got burnt a bunch of times, and I just don't see that happening. I think that that's something that you can prevent. Obviously they had speed that we hadn't seen, but now we've seen it, so we can adjust to it. And I just love the direction of the team. I think that this is a team that's a team of destiny at this point. They got beat to death after that Michigan game, and I felt bad for them because I've been in their shoes. I'm the only. We're the only guys that's in this realm that's, we've lost the big bowl games, and we've been kind of underwater and kind of destroyed by the fan base. And again, it's not fun. I mean, God, nobody's more disappointed than we are, but that doesn't give any solace to the fans. Like when we lose to Florida, or we lose to Texas, or we lose to whoever, there's nothing we can say or do. All we can do is try to kind of calm the waters and go, win the rest of the games and win out and do whatever. But the 05 team I was on, we were out of the playoff hunt we were out of the BCS hunt by week 5 or 6. We lost to Texas and we lost to Penn State, and we were donezo. And again, that was that's one of the best. People always have really fond memories about that team because of how we finished, and we beat Notre Dame with Brady Quinn, and AJ Hawk is sacking him and whatever. So I think that this is the kind of team that people that there's going to be a lot of teams that gave up. But that's the thing about our best teams that we've had in my lifetime, 02, 14, there's always times where the fan base gives up. They quit, or a portion of them do. They just say, I'm done. We stink. It's over. I can't take it anymore, whatever. And then the team just kind of closes ranks, and they circle the wagons, and then all of a sudden, magically, they get better, and then the bandwagon starts to fill back up. That's where we're at right now. The bandwagon's starting to fill back up, and people are like, oh man, these guys actually could be good. And I was like, guys, schematically, I don't just say that I really like what Chip Kelly does because of my health, or because I like that he's, a kind of a goofy looking guy from New Hampshire. I watch his stuff and I say, that is really hard to defend. I don't know how we would defend that. I don't know. And again, when you not only take you put the little chess pieces out there, not only is it hard to defend it, but then when you realize that the chess pieces are J.J. Smith and Trey Henderson and Will Howard, really hard to go against. So, because all those guys pose different problems, and they're all fast and physical and big and intelligent, and they've got all the attributes. So you got a bunch of those guys, and I'm not even talking about Emeka and Cardell Tate and Trey. I mean, I talk about the kind of, in my mind, the big three right now as we go through the playoffs is Will, Trey, and JJ. But I mean, Emeka's a first round pick, and we don't even talk about him because JJ's an NFL Hall of Famer at this point, in the making. So, but yeah, I've watched this game. I've watched the All-22 multiple times, and when we needed it the most, our offensive line, led by Austin Sauerveld, was out there on that last drive. I've talked about that all the time, where he was going against 55, the guy that made first team All-American, Harmon, the guy that's from Michigan State, and he was locking him down in the 2-minute drill, like cuffs, lockdown. So he's not going to be scared to get out there and get his nose dirty. Carson Hinsman has been on fire. We got Tigra is getting better. Luke Montgomery's been really good. And again, our scheme has been excellent. So, I would submit that our line that we're playing, this week or this game versus Oregon is going to be better than the line that we played, 2/3 of the game with when Josh Simmons went down. Because again, putting Zen out there, and again, it's nothing against Zen. I think Zen's a great kid, great player, great everything, but he wasn't ready to play. You couldn't scheme in the moment for having your backup left tackle. But now, like they know who we're gonna have as our starting five, and they know strengths, weaknesses, how to protect them. Which again, I say that all the time, but there's a lot of things I've learned in my time as a player or coach. When we lost to the Florida Gators in 2006, and they massacred us, they didn't have a single offensive lineman on that line get drafted, and none of them had NFL careers. None of them. So that wasn't the Pounceys, that wasn't Max Starks. I mean, they had 5 guys that had literally none of them had NFL careers. None of them got drafted, and they massacred Vernon Golson, Jay Richardson, Quinn Pick. I mean, those are all really good players, guys that were NFL guys. Vernon was the 6th overall pick, but the scheme was so good that it made those guys look great. So again, that's why I always talk about how the scheme is so important when you talk about offensive line. Because again, if you take those same group of guys and put them out on an island and try to have them square up versus Vernon and Quinn Pickcock, like probably not going to go great. But when you throw in all the misdirection, the way that they run their zone game, your read option, RPOs, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of smoking, cloak and dagger, smoke and mirror type stuff that it adds a lot of help to the offensive line. And again, Chip Kelly was dealing that out in spades. So you see these motions, and you see we run a counter, and then we run a play fake, play action fake off of it, and then we run a 7-man max protection, get rid of the ball quick. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you can do that makes your offensive line, your job as offensive line, a cakewalk. And again, I applaud these guys for recognizing, hey, we got a lot of young guys in here. We're going against a really good front. We need to protect them a little bit. Again, that's nothing against the O-line, but it's just smart, because I mean, everything I read for the entire week leading up to that was that Tennessee's front is amazing and our line stinks and this is going to be a massacre. And, and I was like, I don't know, because I think you can scheme around these guys. Now, Tennessee's front is excellent. I mean, that's probably the best front we've seen all year. But we handled them. And a lot of it was credit to Chip Kelly and the way that he schemed it and called the game. And he did put our guys in bad spots. And a lot of it's credit to Will Howard, because Will Howard got rid of the ball. Again, you didn't hold on to it for 6 years and get killed. Like I watched these morons in the NFL hold on the ball for 9 seconds, and some practice squad guys to block Myles Garrett or TJ Watt, and they get massacred. And I'm just like, that's what you get. So, again, I love our plan. I think it's going to be excellent. Nevada, any thoughts? We'll start digging into some super chats.
No, I just, I like the fact that we've got a set offensive line going in, that we're not going to have to go through the fire drill of throwing Zen out there. I mean, probably the last thing Zen expected to do was to play in that game or play meaningful minutes. And I like I said, as bad as it was to lose Josh Simmons, I just think stability on the offensive line is really, really key. And when you can combine stability with innovative play calling, that really keeps the defense guessing, I think we can put the offensive line in good spots and continue to move the ball. So it's going to be a heck of a game. But man, don't ever underestimate the hot team. There's always one in whatever league. It doesn't matter if it's hockey, football, baseball, basketball. There's always one team that gets hot, and nobody wants to deal with them. And that team's the Buckeyes. So Oregon better be ready.
Ravia Tube, thank you for the 5. What's up with our kicker? Was it just cold preventing him from kicking the field goal, or is it something else like mechanics? Nevada, do you want to take a crack on that, being Mr. Lambeau Field like you are?
Well, that night nobody was kicking the ball far. I mean, I'm not defending Fielding for anything. I mean, it doesn't matter to me whether Fielding's our kicker, but I think evaluating anything from that particular night, um, we were watching the kickers in warm-ups, and neither kicker was getting anywhere near 55 yards, and the ball was like an ice block. I mean, it was really really cold. So I really wouldn't read too much into that, and I have high hopes. I mean, Fielding, look, the offense had a bad day against Michigan. Right, Will Howard had a bad day against Michigan. Chip Kelly had a bad day. Ryan Day had a bad day. But you know what? They bounced back against Tennessee, and they were terrific, completely different players. So, why not with your kicker? I mean, he had a bad day. He's had a great year. He had those three out of bounds kicks in that game that didn't matter anything, which was just weird. But he's 53 of 53 on extra points, 7 of 8 on field goals until the Michigan game, and he just had a bad day. So I'm optimistic that if it comes down to it, they'll be able to kick. He's what we have, so I'm going to think positive thoughts for him. And after we win the national championship, we can talk about who's available in the portal or whatever there is in terms of that. But I just don't think you can read too much into that Saturday night because the ball was hard as a rock and it just was not traveling.
Yeah, and again, when you're in an environment where it's freezing cold and it's windy and the ball's hard as a rock, I mean, the ball's just not going to travel. So again, that's something you got to figure out in pregame warmups. And again, good coaches like Ryan Day and the people that are handling his special teams are going to get a good feel from him, go out there with pregame warmups. And again, here's the thing. Those guys were kicking all week, so they know what the weather's like. It wasn't like they flew in from Knoxville. And they also go over to the stadium a couple of days during practice. Like while we're out there practicing, they'll load up the van and go over to the stadium and kick over there and kind of get a feel for, the terrain, the wind as best you can. Now, obviously, the wind can obviously change from day to day. I'm not, stupid, but it's like, when you're in the stadium and it's 95 degrees out, it's a different experience than if it's 25 degrees out. And again, when there's projecting wind and they're projecting cold, like that ball's just not gonna travel. It's like kicking a rock. So again, like you gotta call the game appropriately. I mean, again, that's the thing about football, man, is it's one of the few sports that's actually played in elements, and the elements can be crippling to parts of your team. Again, like we played in that rain, that cold, sleeting, wintry mix in Ann Arbor in 07, and it was I always say it was 34 degrees, so it wasn't snowing and it wasn't frozen, and just rain and sleet and snow, and we could not throw the ball. The ball slipped out of Todd's hands through a pick. Michigan couldn't throw it either, so it wasn't like it was a Todd thing. It was just that's just part of it. So it was ground control to Major Tom, and ground and pound our way to a victory. So again, I can't fault Jaden. Again, I've been very critical of Jaden. I hope that he turns it around, but again, I think that you have to consider the elements before you go kind of all in. And again, that's why a lot of the smart kickers kick in domes, and that's why I give a lot of credit to guys like Mason Crosby and Adam Vinatieri and these guys that kicked in terrible weather. I'm sure Adam Vinatieri was not crying tears when he went from New England to Indianapolis. He went from cold, miserable snow Foxborough to the Lucas Oil Dome, where it's climate controlled for at least half your games, and if you get home field throughout, then it's like a dream. But that's a great question. I appreciate you. All right, RavyTube, thank you for the 10. I appreciate you, my man. Here we go. What's up with everyone announcing Dan Lanning is the next Nick Saban? Personally, I think Day is going to teach everyone a lesson that he's not a pushover, that Lanning can't just win over. Well, and I'll go a little bit on this first, and then I'll toss it to Nevada. But a year ago, Dan Lanning lost to Washington twice. Lost to him in the regular season, lost to him in the Pac-12 championship, didn't make the playoffs. And again, is he a really good young coach? Of course. Is he doing amazing things at Oregon? Yes. Does Uncle Phil have a lot to do with that? Also, yes. But, he's got to win something. They won the Big Ten, and again, most people would realize that winning the Big Ten against Penn State is a whole different animal than winning it against Ohio State. But they did beat us by 1 point in Allison, so again, I got to give them that. Again, I'm not delusional. I don't have amnesia. But to me, I just think that, man, you really I don't know. The anointing oil is coming out. I mean, it's like they're buying the Costco jugs of anointing oil at this point for Dan Lanning. And I think that he's got a lot of upside and potential, and he's kind of the guy that Alabama wanted him, Texas A&M wanted him. They offered him a fortune. Obviously Oregon gave him a ton of money, but we'll see. He's got to win a natty before he can be in the conversation with Nick Saban, who won 7 national titles, whatever he won, plus was a good coordinator in the NFL and everything else. So Nevada, your thoughts? Ravia Tube, thanks for the 10. He says, "What's up with everyone announcing Dan Lanning as the next Nick Saban? Personally, I think Day is going to teach everyone a lesson that he's not a pushover, that Lanning can just win over." What are your thoughts?
No, I totally agree. And you took the words out of my mouth. I mean, he lost twice to Washington in his big games last year. This year his big game was Ohio State at home. They won by 1, which is great. I think Lane's a good coach. I think he's a good coach. He's a good aggressive coach, and I think he's the perfect coach for Oregon. And I think he'll do a good job there. But if you're asking me whether I'd rather have Dan Lanning or Ryan Day, I'd rather have Ryan Day. Lanning was a defensive coach at Oregon. Ryan Day is a quarterback whisperer, and a guy that understands the offensive side of the ball. Sometimes that can work. In rare occasions that can work to your detriment, but in most of the cases that works really well for you. So no, I love Ryan Day in terms of what he can be. He just has to let it happen, and he did. So I'm excited about it, and I'm definitely not drinking the Lanning Kool-Aid at all, and I do think he gets a lesson and a little bit of a humbling in the Rose Bowls, and I'm going to bet real money towards that end.
Well, I think the problem is when you deal with Oregon and Dan Lanning, and I mean this sincerely, nobody cares about Oregon football at all, ever. If they lose a game, let me know the next time that it's on First Take, or it's the lead story on Sports Center, or it's the top story on ESPN. Like, Ohio State is a suffocating job because every one of your screw ups is under the microscope. It's the lead story on every ESPN. Because again, Ohio State is the biggest brand in all of college football by far, and it's in Ohio. And I always tell you guys, people in Ohio are people that tune into the sports radio. They listen to Colin Cowherd. Colin Cowherd's made hundreds of millions of dollars, like making fun of Baker Mayfield when he was the Browns guy, and LeBron when he was with the Cavs, and Ohio State. I mean, Colin's a genius. Nevada obviously knows Colin better than anybody. And again, there's a reason why he doesn't talk about Oregon football every day incessantly, like he talks about Ohio State, because nobody cares. So Ryan Day gets beaten and tarred and feathered when he does anything wrong, when he loses a game. Or, like I said, Dan Lanning lost to Washington twice last year. The Washington Huskies, who lost by 90 points to Michigan in the national title game, he couldn't beat those guys at all. And he had Bo Nix, who's a first-round quarterback, and everything else. And again, he just kind of skates on it because I don't know if it's because he's young. I don't know if it's because he smokes cigars on signing day. I don't know. And again, I'm not cracking on the guy. Like, again, if Ryan Day left and went to the Chicago Bears tomorrow and he said, "Kirk, you're the new AD and you get to pick anybody to be the coach," I'm picking Lanning. Like, I think he's a really good coach. But am I taking him over Ryan Day? I mean, what has Lanning ever won? And I mean, that's he beat us by 1 point by a miracle of God penalty. Okay. And then we didn't get a review when we had a second left where he could have kicked the field goal. Okay. But he doesn't, he's not under the microscope like Ryan is. Like, he doesn't have, he has a fan base that's just happy to be there. He doesn't have a fan base that's like, fire everybody. Like, I mean, just crucify the entire team in the middle of the oval for the lunatics. Yeah, so it's like, I don't know. Like could he have the chin to do the Ohio State job? Let's see, maybe. I mean, Ryan's figuring out this isn't for everybody. I mean, this job crushed Urban, it crushed Tress. I mean, it's just not for everybody. And again, I'm fine with that. I lived it. Again, you're talking to a guy that won big games, lost big games. I've been in the inferno for 20 years now of Ohio State football, and I know what it's like. I know what the fan base is like. I've taught kids that are on the team about it. I've taught coaches about it. And that's why you guys tune in, because like I've lived everything that Ryan's lived. I've already lived it. So it just kind of is what it is. But Lanning, I don't know. He is he's like, there's always these coaches that are big time upside, big time growth, young, good looking. Like, and I love Matt Campbell. Matt Campbell went to my high school. I've known Matt since '97. But he was that guy like 5 years ago. He was the guy that Ohio's Gene Smith had on the list if Urban retired, and New York Jets offered him the job, the Detroit Lions offered him the job. Like, he got offered the job before Dan Campbell did. So again, now his star has faded a little bit because they've lost some games at Iowa State, and still a fantastic coach. But I mean, can Lanning keep this up? He probably can, because he's gonna have a super roster going forward. But I don't know. I would never hire a defensive head coach in a billion years, because I feel like if you have any level of success in college football or NFL football, the first guy who's got to get poached is your offensive coordinator. So if you want to switch out the terminology and the mannerisms and everything else every single time that you have success, then I guess have at it. But I think that it's really tough to keep losing your OC. Yeah, I mean, DC, I think, is much easier. Most defenses are, I don't want to say they're completely similar, but there's 99% of the teams are running nickel, and there's some variance of it, and they might have some different pass rush stuff, some different blitzes, and different tweaks to the coverages. But most people are running cover 2, cover 4, cover 3, variants, zero man, like cover 1, like depending on what your personnel is. So I don't know, but the Lanning thing is fascinating to me, but a lot of the luster can be one off. But again, if he did the same stuff at Ohio State last year and lost to the same team twice, like, he'd have gotten beaten to death by our fan base, as opposed to them just being happy to be there. VP of Hype, thank you for the 5. So confused on the notice of allegations not public. Any news on that, Nevada?
Yeah, no. I mean, it's just like they got an extension. We're waiting for the extension to be filed with the NCAA. There's a public dashboard. There's a NCAA infractions dashboard that you can go to, that you can kind of follow this if you want. That kind of shows all this. So you don't have to take my word for it, or Kirk's word for it, or Buckeye Scoop's word for it. It's all out there. As for the notice of allegations, I think that Michigan's holding, giving the notice of allegations to the press via the Freedom of Information Act requests until after their bowl game. I think they don't want that to be the big talking point topic during their bowl game. So I think they're waiting for that to go. That's just my personal theory, and a theory from talking to a lot of people that are waiting on the Sports Information Department to provide that to them. I think that's kind of a popular thing, because they're charging like $500 for a media outlet, or I mean, it's a lot of money that they're charging for copying and pulling this thing and stuff like that. So they're not making it cheap, or they're not making it easy, and they're not giving it up very easily. But it's all going to come out. Like I said, it is part of the Freedom of Information Act. It is all going to be public record, and we're all going to get a chance to read it here. But I think personally it's going to wait until after their bowl game. But that's just my personal opinion.
I'm watching Kansas State losing 34-17 to Rutgers, and the quarterback that Will Howard wasn't as good as doesn't look too good in Nevada. Are you surprised by that? Avery Johnson.
Well, Avery Johnson. I mean, he's fine. I mean, Avery's fine, and I've got a big bet on Rutgers +7, so I'm hoping that they just hold on and don't soil the buoy here to become the thing. But yeah, no. I mean, hey, I'm glad there's nobody I would rather have in this college football playoff. If you let me redraft and give me every player, nobody I'd rather have than Will Howard. I think Will's the guy, and we're gonna see. He's gonna take another step in the Rose Bowl, and then everybody's gonna be on the Will Howard bandwagon. But just wait and see.
Sean Schrock, what's up, brother? Thank you for the 10. Thanks for being a great moderator on here, and also thank you for being an ultra member. Appreciate you, brother, and Merry Christmas to you. You and Steely always getting my phone nice and heated up with the text, so I appreciate you guys both, as always. The Miami team that OSU beat in 02 is a better team than any team we will face this year. They will have played a much tougher schedule this year, but that Miami team was filled with NFL players. Oh, yeah. I mean, that 02 Miami team had, Hall of Famers across the board on it. And I don't see a team in this playoff outside of Ohio State that has had anywhere near that much talent. So I agree with you. I mean, Andre Johnson's in the Hall of Fame, and Will Fork was a Pro Bowler, and They had a couple the first round left tackle, Vernon Carey, and a couple first rounders on the D line, McDougal, William Joseph. Obviously,
Sean
that
Taylor.
was Sean Taylor, Kellen Winslow, McGahee. Obviously, I mean that was a insane team at a time when they were the dogs of the sport. But again, that's why you play the games. And again, that 0-2 team, and again, Nevada, I know you had a front row seat to it, as did I, because I was getting recruited. Like, the fan base was not in love with that 0-2 team. And going into that game, man, it was not like, ooh, boy, I can't wait to beat the Hurricanes. It was more like, God, I hope we don't get massacred, killed, whatever. That's kind of like the feeling I thought. Because, we saw Iowa get killed by USC earlier in that bowl season, and Iowa was good that year. And I just think that the fan base wasn't really buying into it until it actually happened. And I was like, hey, it's amazing. But, the players, really the only people that matter are the players and the coaches. And those guys showed up. And again, you have to manage emotions with college football. And there's a lot of guys that are up and down and they think it's going to be easy and it's not easy. And a lot of it is, and again, the playoffs are different because obviously everybody's trying to win the championship. But you watch these bowl games and there's some teams that are excited to be there. There's some that aren't. And honestly, like, I feel like, and this is going to be weird, there's just some really good bowl games. Like, I mean, I was watching the Pittsburgh Toledo game and like incredible entertainment. And this Rutgers game is good. These kids are playing hard. So I don't know. I love where college football is right now, but, what are your thoughts about it? Is that Miami team? Obviously it's better than any team we've seen this year, but what are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, clearly that is, but I mean, you think about that team, the Ohio State team's path to the championship. Their big game was Washington State and Jason Gesser at home in Columbus, and then after that, really it was Penn State at home, Michigan that they won 14-9 in kind of a crazy snoozer game, and then you're in the national championship. No Tennessee, no Oregon, no Texas. You know what I'm saying? So their path, while the last game was considerably harder than anything that was a historically difficult game, um, playing one game and winning one game, no matter who you're playing against, is always easier than having to win 4 coin flips. And that's what we're gonna have to do here. I mean, every game, the Tennessee game, a lot of people are picking Tennessee. This game here, 2-point spread, virtually a coin flip. Same thing against Texas that we play them, and then who knows who you get in the championship game. So yeah, this if some I hate even talking about it because there's just so much football ahead of us. But if somehow, some way these guys pull it off, they are on the pantheon of greats for me, no question about it.
Yeah, it's the best team in school history to me. I mean, you run this table, this is no joke. So we'll see. And I put this team up. And again, I just look at the talent level of this team versus the 0-2 team and the 14 team. Like, I just think that, when Urban Meyer says this is the most talented team that he's ever seen, and then if they run the table and win the national title, like, what else do you need or want? I mean, and again, I always throw in the coaches because I think that this is the best duo of coordinators we've had. So keep cranking, guys. Buckeye 1, thanks to the Deuce, has as the offensive line's blocking switch from zone to gap scheme. I don't think we're going to fully abandon zone because a lot of what we ran versus Oregon the first time was zone, but we did run a lot of gap scheme versus Tennessee. Again, you can do both. Like, we did both when I played. It's not that dramatic of a difference. Like, guys like Alex Gibbs, God rest his soul, who was the greatest line coach in the history of O-line. He was the offensive line coach for Denver when they would run, Terrell Davis and Orlando Scary and Mike Anderson. I mean, they had a bunch of basically 7th round running backs or 6th round running backs. They'd lead the NFL in rushing every year. Like, that was Alex Gibbs' zone scheme. And he was a big believer that you can't run zone and gap, but we always ran zone and gap. It's not really that hard. I don't think it's terribly different. Again, there's some nuances. Obviously, with the gap scheme, you're going to have a puller somewhere. But Urban did both. I mean, we had inside zone, and then we had power, which is the play where you pull the guard and you double team on the front side. He literally called that Mickey because it was Mickey's favorite play, as in Mickey Marotti. So we called it 16-17 Mickey, like Mickey Mouse, but it was Mickey Marotti. So I don't think that we've totally switched it. I know that we ran predominantly that versus Tennessee. But it's just kind of a matchup thing. But I love zone read option. I think it's the hardest thing in the world to defend. But I do like pulling guards. If you have guards that can pull, again, that's the thing, is you got to have a guard that can get around and do it. And not every guard is as adept of a puller as can be. Like when I played in 06, we didn't run to the right as much because TJ Downing was a better puller than Steve Ring, and Steve Ring was a really good player. But TJ was lighter and could pull better. And so him and Alex on the front side doubling, and then TJ pulling around, that made more sense. In 05, we were really heavy run to the right behind me and TJ because Rob Sims was an excellent puller. So I don't know if we fully switched. But again, I don't think we're just going to completely abandon the zone stuff that worked really effectively versus Oregon. Nevada, any thoughts on the switch between zone and zone and gap scheme?
No, but Ohio State's going to run them both, and I think for Ohio State, I'm not really sure if Ohio State there's really an advantage to going one way or another with them. I really like the way that the offensive line is kind of, as you said, against Oregon, you've got to mix it up against those guys because you've had success both ways, and I just don't see them changing that up. And they're not going to just completely abandon zone or gap and go one way or another. I mean, I don't. Does anybody really do that anymore? I mean, that as the All-American. I've always been in the impression that everybody runs both.
Yeah, I mean, there's very few. I mean, like the truest Alex Gibbs guys hated power. Like when I was at the Senior Bowl, Tom Cable, who was the most Alex Gibbs disciple of all time, he hated the power play, and that was the best play. That was Jim Trustle's favorite play. It was also LaDainian Tomlinson when he scored like 30 touchdowns and broke the record. They ran that play 80% of the time with Marty Schottenheimer. So again, it's a very effective play when blocked correctly. But again, you don't just have to do one or the other. That'd be like saying we're only going to throw deep, we're only going to throw intermediate, or it doesn't make any sense, or throw short. I mean, you can do both, and they're frankly I don't think that they're terribly different, honestly. So again, that's just me. I mean, I played in both and I liked both. I mean, I got just as excited to run a gap scheme play where I was at the front side of a double team as I did when I was the focal point of a zone where, a zone, like I have to go stretch the guy out. And, I showed you guys the play against Michigan where I dumped Pat Massey on his head. Like that was a zone play. My job was to stretch the defensive out and create the hole. And I did. I grabbed him and threw him on the ground, and we ran for 10 yards or whatever, and it is what it is. So I don't think that you need to pick one, but again, we had some really effective zone stuff versus Oregon, so I don't think we're just gonna bag that just for the heck of it. Josh Dillon, thank you for the 5. I get that there's a high possibility in Texas making the semis, but Georgia, I wouldn't bet on it. I think Notre Dame is going to beat them. I mean, it absolutely could happen. Absolutely could happen. I think Georgia's favored right now, but again, when you lose your starting quarterback, man, that is tough. It's really tough. And, they were able to eke it out and beat Texas in the SEC title game. But I mean, you have a backup quarterback and it changes all the calculus to me. So yeah, I don't know. I think that it could be Notre Dame. I would love if it was Notre Dame because frankly, I just think Georgia has better players, but it's just my opinion. Nevada, your thoughts. And again, Josh, I love the Kucherov photo on your thing. Every time I see it, it's always great. Thank you for the 5. He says, I get there is a high possibility in Texas making the semis, but Georgia, I wouldn't bet on it. I think Notre Dame is going to beat them. What are your thoughts on Georgia and Notre Dame, Nevada?
Yeah, I think it's the great unknown. I think it's one of those, is this a Cardale Jones type of situation, or is this a Florida State losing their first guy and their second guy stinks situation, or is it somewhere in between? And I don't think anybody really knows what you're going to get out of it. But no, I mean, Notre Dame is absolutely, a live team to make it through on that side. Even though I don't think much of Marcus Freeman as a head coach, but that's just my personal opinion. And people can throw stones and go, Nevada, he's the greatest young coach. I mean, maybe he is. I don't think he's that good of a coach, but he's got his team. They're playing well. They beat Indiana and beat them pretty soundly. And I think, I agree with you. I think they could absolutely beat Georgia, but that's definitely going to be an intriguing game to watch. And certainly, I'm not. I do not have a strong feeling on which way that game's going to go.
Lisa Shear, thank you for the 5. Hope you had a great Christmas. Appreciate you as always. I haven't watched Oregon versus Wisconsin 16-13. Oh, any clues from that game on the Ducks Achilles heel? Will Demon Dan have any trick plays? What do you expect? I have not watched that game because Wisconsin kind of mudded through that thing. But I mean, that was Luke had a chance to win that one and kind of plant the flag and get a signature win up at Wisconsin, which he really needs right now. But I have not watched that game. I've watched Boise. I've watched the Penn State game. I've watched our game. Mostly I watched our game because again, if you want a pretty similar idea of what they're going to be doing, like watch what they did in the previous game. Now I'm sure they'll do different stuff, but they won, so I don't think it's going to be that much different. I don't think that you need to reinvent the wheel, but it was it's again, like those games sometimes are tricky. College football, night game, loud, on the road, tough. I mean, and again, you go into a place that's an inferno like Camp Randall, it can be tough. So I'll actually watch that one tonight because that's a good one to study. So I'm gonna see if I get that all 22 film up. Nevada, and will Demon have trick plays? Of course. I mean, they love tricks. They love running tricks on the 2-point conversions. They love running. They, like I said, they did that surprise kick, which I'm sure that will rep 1,000 times leading into the game. You gotta always be on your toes with these guys. So you can't relax. You can't take a play off. You can't take the extra point off because they'll run a 2-point conversion, or they do the swinging gate where they move the O line over and throw it over into them like the big rugby herd. They like to get creative, and I'm sure they'll have some stuff in the bag for us, just like any good team would. So that's what I expect. Nevada, again, Lisa, I appreciate you being on here. She asks, have you watched Oregon, Wisconsin? And I watched it live. Now, again, that was a long time ago. It was, like a month ago. But again, that was, Oregon didn't look like the number one team that night. And Wisconsin's a team that lost to Alabama by 50 points. And so, I don't know. What are your thoughts on their Achilles heel, Nevada? And will Demon Dan have any trick plays? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the trick plays you got to expect. That's just baked into the cake whenever you play Oregon and Dan Lanning for sure. As for that game, I think you nailed it again. I think playing on the road at night in the Big Ten is hard, and I think that was just one of those nights. I'm not particularly looking at that as like that showed some vulnerability for Oregon. It showed the vulnerability that every quarterback that's ever had since the beginning of time, which is if you pressure Dylan Gabriel, he's not as effective as when you don't pressure him. So being Captain Obvious there, Wisconsin was able to get him off his mark, move him around, and they struggled as a result. And I think that's going to be Ohio State's big challenge is the first game they were absolutely unable to get any pressure just bringing 4. Can they get pressure bringing 4, or do they need to blitz? And when they blitz, can they do it in such a way that that Dylan Gabriel doesn't punish them for blitzing? So I think that's what the game comes down to. But I think that was kind of an aberration to me. Their offensive struggles that night, and I think every team has those games, kind of like we did against Michigan. But I think the bigger story for Oregon has been consistent struggles for their defense. They've had a number of really stinker games, and to me, that is a vulnerability, and I think we're going to exploit that.
I agree. Jim Dushel, thanks for the 100. I appreciate you, brother. He texted me his question, so you're the best. He said, I tried to send this question. How does JJ not win the Freshman of the Year? Nevada, do you have any thoughts on that? Because he gave it to the linebacker from Texas, which I thought was kind of interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, I don't even know. I mean, like who the freshman? Like who votes on that? Like, is it some group or? I think you'd probably have to look at the people that were voting and kind of dive into more about that. But I mean, to me, JJ, I truly believe JJ is the best wide receiver in all of college football. I think JJ is the best freshman wide receiver to ever play at Ohio State, and I think JJ will leave as the best wide receiver to ever have played at Ohio State. So that's kind of where he ranks on my little Nevadabuck rankings.
Yeah, I agree. Abby Tufter, she's our homie from Peaks. Jim and I actually were there shooting the bull. Jim has been up for a long day. He had the terrible situation in Nevada. You've lived with this, where you get the decision of if you got to put your family pet down, and thankfully Jim's dog is still alive and surviving, and he took him to the vet and was there all day. So he said, let's grab a Frosty, and then Abby was working, so I said, hey, what's up? And we're gonna send a question, and it was just like one of those things where it's a tough day. So when your friend's like, "Hey, I got to get out for a minute. Can you come shoot the bull for a minute?" I'm like, "Sure, of course, love to." But again, it's a great feeling when you think that you're going to have to put your animal down and then it survives. So again, that was Jim's day. Jim, I love you to death, my man. You're a great supporter. Where's this Buckeye Scoop stuff every day? So I appreciate you, brother, as always. And Nevada, I know you have empathy for that because you've lived that, and it sucks. As mean as Nevada is to me on the show, you guys have to understand he does have a soft heart towards animals. Now, I'm not an animal, so he hates me, but other than that, he is a pretty soft guy.
No, my wife always, but she'll walk at me, and I'm watching Instagram reels on like those dogs and pets that are like abused and then they're transformed and then they're brought out. She's like, "Are you watching more of those dog videos?" And I'm like, "I am. These poor dogs, they need a good home, man." I feel so bad for them. So, yep, we have a bunch of rescue. I have rescues surrounding me here right now as I'm podcasting. So, rescue Chewinis.
So when they start fighting, don't bag on our production quality.
Don't bag on production quality. It's a Chewini fight. Exactly.
That's not studio quality when there's two dogs like ripping each other's necks out. They're fighting over the same, sausage or whatever. They're fighting over the same dog toy. Like, no. Oh my God. I love it.
They found food in the bed.
Hey, Glow. Thanks for the dues. Thanks for being off as well. Oh, I like this. Ryan will invoke his inner warpath spirit. I don't know what that means. That sounds great because I'm always on the warpath. And again, I actually love how that sounds. Nevada, your thoughts? So Ryan Day invoke his inner warpath spirit. That sounds amazing.
He's certainly tapping into a different side of him, and we want him to be aggressive. I think as fans, you wonder like, well, what difference it makes? But I just think we have to support him in his aggression, and sometimes that works against him. It's kind of like Dan Campbell and the Lions. Like he's gone all in on aggression, and that means they go for fourth down all over the field. And you know what? Sometimes that's going to come back and bite you on the butt. And when it does, as fans, we just have to not freak out about it and go, you know what? We're okay with that because I'd rather live with aggression and live with the flip side of that when that happens. But he definitely needs to find whatever his spirit animal is, and I hope it's a tiger and he's ferocious in the Rose Bowl.
What if it's like a panda bear? They're kind of adorable, aren't they? Or no? Panda bear is like nasty, rip your head off kind of thing.
It's like skadoosh. It's like big old Poe or whatever it is. The Kung Fu Panda, skadoosh.
I love Kung Fu Panda. That's a fantastic movie. Pooh Beard 12, thanks for the 5. This is great. And thanks for being an ultra member. Thanks for always being hilarious. I appreciate you, brother. In my opinion, a huge aspect of our D's improvement has been Sonny getting better at linebacker. I agree. Also, Crazy Sat and Nevada had this out the other day. Our defense has not allowed a passing touchdown since the Oregon game. So, maybe our fan base whipping them into shape helped them. But that is a fascinating stat, and I don't think there's ever been a team in Ohio State history that's gone that long without having a passing touchdown. I mean, because we play Oregon, like week 5 or week 6, and like we've went 6-7 games, 6 games with no, or 7 games, Tennessee included, with no passing touchdown. Nevada, I don't think we've ever had a stretch that long. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it's been incredible. It just shows you how stout our pass defense has been, and what an aberration that Oregon game was. And that's part of the reason why I'm so optimistic about getting it this time around, because it can't be a repeat of what happened the first time. I mean, it just can't. That was clearly aberrant, and I don't see that happening. Also, I don't think our opponents have been called for a holding penalty in like 11 games or something like that. We're due one of those at some point in time. Somebody's got to get called for holding, and I'm waiting for that to happen as well. So better defensive effort overall, and maybe a holding penalty on Oregon, and that could make all the difference.
What will happen first, a holding call or a passing touchdown against our defense?
I'm saying holding call. Holding. I think we're gonna.
I like the positive juju. I like it.
That's where I'm going.
That's where you live.
That's where I live. That's the world. It's funny. My kids were like, "Dad, you are so positive. We always love that you're so positive." And they're like, that's a good attribute to have. I'm glad that my kids see me that way. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Someone call you a sunshine pumper. Would you agree with that? You pump a lot of
Yeah.
sunshine that Ohio State's the number one team in the playoffs and
Yeah.
best betting.
I
Like,
I wear that as a badge of honor, man. I love that. That's one of my favorite things ever. Just um, I mean, Ohio State football's in a great spot. I mean, we're in a great spot. You know, as I always say, we're not sunshine pumpers. We're weathermen. We're just telling you how the weather is outside, and if it's 80 degrees and sunny out in Manhattan Beach, I'm not going to tell you that it's raining because it's beautiful. So another beautiful day in MB.
another beautiful day. Oh, here we go. Jim Dushel figured out how to type, my brother. I appreciate you. Thanks for the 5. He says, here we go, Nevada. How's Jerry Emick still have a job when JJ doesn't win the freshman of the year? Nevada, I'll let you take this one first.
Oh, well, this year we did get the Remington, and we did and Caleb Downs won the Thorpe or whatever. I mean, so we did get a couple of awards this year, but Emick is a clown. You guys you really can't. I cannot put into words how bad at his job and how dishonest the guy is. I mean, he's dishonest. So and I'm saying that publicly. So at the risk of Jerry Emick coming after me and going, no, I'm not dishonest. I'm going to sue Nevadabuck. Bring it on, Jerry. You are dishonest. So it's really a shame that he has a job at Ohio State because he's not good at his job and like I said, he's not an honest person.
Oh, we know. We live that one. Yeah, just,
Yeah.
Again, JJ not winning the freshman of the year when he might be the best receiver in the country. I mean, he wasn't up for the Blitnikoff. And again, I know that it's like, you see what this kid does and the value he adds to the offense. And he stepped in on the best team in the country as the number one weapon on the team. And I don't know. Like, I know that there's other receivers that could win the award, win the Blitnikoff, Travis Hunter, or whatever. It's like, I'm not taking anybody on offense over JJ. I'm just not. The way he works, the way he acts, how on point he is, how terrifyingly fast and tall he is. Like, there's just no way. So again, we don't promote these guys. We're terrible about it. And yeah, it just kind of is what it is. It sucks because I mean he should have won multiple awards this year, and he's empty-handed. So it is what it is. All right, Nevada, wrap this thing up. Any final thoughts?
No, just exciting stuff. Exciting stuff going around the game. The game plan is going to be it's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun to watch the defense on a mission to kind of redeem themselves from what they view as a D- effort the first time around against Oregon. And I like seeing a fired up Jim Knowles, and that's going to be that's going to be fun as well. So can't wait for the game and one day closer.
I cannot wait. All right, I appreciate you guys kicking with us. As always, if you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Again, I appreciate you guys. Glad you guys had a great Christmas and happy Hanukkah as we roll into the new year and to the Rose Bowl, the best coverage in the world. It's on BuckeyeScoop.com. A lot of inside information is flowing right now. Amazing community of people. Do yourself a favor. Join us. Join us on our premium message board concierge. Access to Nevadabuck and I each and every day is where we live the rest of the day. So again, I appreciate you guys so much. Again, if you enjoy our content, just leave us that like, click subscribe. Shout out where you guys are watching from. We haven't done that in a while. I always like to see where you guys are watching from, who you guys are watching with, the families. I love the dynamics of the show. I just appreciate you guys so very much. Again, if you'll do us a huge favor, give us a follow on Apple Music and also Spotify. And again, I saw a question about us being on YouTube only. For video, we are only on YouTube. For audio, we're on every major platform, led by Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So I just want to give you that quick little update. But again, I appreciate you guys so very much. So again, we'll see you guys tomorrow, 7:10. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. And thank you, Scoop family. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Go Bucks.